Greetings, I'm Bobby W6IWN and this is the Slinky antenna. I've done a couple videos on it before. I was sitting around the house today and I was like, I really need to get out which antenna I'm going to use. Why not the Slinky antenna? It's been a while. So I'll show you up close on the bench how this thing works, how I made it, and we'll see if we can't get activated. So what this is this is the Slinky toy. So if you aren't familiar with those, it's a big spring Slinky toy for kids and adults sometimes. Okay, let's take a look at what makes up this Slinky antenna. I did get quite a few emails on some of the older Slinky videos on the how-to. I did not show really how I made the top. I just kind of talked about that. So since I got multiple emails, I will be showing how to make this top piece and the entire antenna from start. So obviously you're going to need the Slinky with that top piece and your lead wire. We'll get to that in more detail here in a little bit. And then you're going to want a 9-to-1, at least this is what I am using for this project, is a 9-to-1 unun. And then I've got some counterpoise wires here. These are made up of, there's 3 wires, 7'6", one is 10 foot, and one is 17 feet. You might want to experiment with your counterpoise wires. This is what I used for this project. And they have a Spade connector that is connecting all 3 of them. That way I can hook it to the ground side of my unun here. All right, so I also am using an inline choke. I highly recommend you do use a choke. So in the video, I think I might have showed myself putting the choke on the feed point, but since this is an EdFed long wire, you might want to try the choke point actually at your transceiver. If you do not have a built-in choke to your coax, you could use your own choke, like a 1-to-1 by LDG would be fine. All right, that is everything that makes up the Slinky antenna that I was using in the video. Here's our parts list for the Slinky antenna today. All right, I'm just going to kind of work with what I got. A Spade terminal would be much better. I have a bunch of ring terminals. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and snip that so it will go around here and work with this. Okay, so that's going to be my ghetto Spade terminal. If you have some Spade terminals around instead of a ring terminal, I recommend using those. You're going to need some wire cutters, some wire strippers. Obviously you're going to need a Slinky. I am using the original one. This is the length I've been told or read up on using. Peanut butter jar. Okay, before I used a orange juice jar. Why am I going to use a peanut butter jar? This is going to be the top piece here that slips over the Slinky and your mast, and then it tries to keep it centered on your fishing pole mast if that's what you're using for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to saw off the bottom of this peanut butter jar. I think it'll be a little bit easier for me to clean this part then. So once I saw it off, I'm going to clean it out. You could also use an orange juice bottle or something, whatever you got that's thick enough plastic that's going to stretch all the way across here, because what you're going to do is you're going to feed it around the Slinky and then there's going to be a hole in the middle, and I'll show you that in more detail here in a minute. And obviously you're going to need some wire. You'll want a short piece here for your lead. Oh, I'm just going to go with say 8-9 inches. That should be plenty for me. So you're obviously going to want to strip the ends of your wire. And then this one I'm going to go to the terminal. After I'm done with that, I'm going to strip about a chunk, maybe an inch or so, 3/4 of an inch, give or take. And that's going to get soldered to the Slinky itself. We're going to jump to the other workbench to show you that. Okay, now that we're over at the other workbench, let me show you what I did. I took that peanut butter jar and I took a serrated steak knife and I cut it on the bottom. Make sure you leave enough ring. This peanut butter jar actually is perfect. Whatever you use, make sure that it's going to cover the whole Slinky, because what we're going to have to do is put 2 holes, one on each side and then one in the middle for your mast. The small holes on each side are going to slip around the Slinky. So that's what I did here, and I'll try to show you everything all up close here. For my Spade connector, since I was fresh out I just took a ring terminal and then I kind of snipped it. I recommend you use a spade terminal if you have it. I just am all out at this moment, so that's kind of what I'm using. And then make sure that's going to slide around the post on this end-fed long wire side. And then also if you're making up counterpoise wires, you're going to want to make sure that you have those, and those are going to be going over the ground side here. Okay, so I have about a, I would say 8-inch piece of wire that I stripped. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add on my spade connector. And I'm just going to go ahead, since I'm going to solder mine, this stuff's just going to melt. I'm going to go ahead and take this plastic coating off of this. Okay, now I've removed the plastic coating so I don't melt it when I solder it. I'm going to go ahead and stick this wire through here. And then I'm making sure that I have enough wire sticking out for me to solder. I'm going to go ahead and crimp this. Okay, for this, I'm using a big chisel tip because I'm going to have to heat up that Slinky. This is what kind of tip I'll be using today. And I've got my soldering iron a little hotter than normal. I'm going to try about 650 here. Okay, I'm just going to apply a little bit of solder to the end of the exposed wire here just for a moment. Make sure that bond's nice. Since I'm going to have a Slinky pulling on it rather than just crimping it, I want this to be extra strong and a good connection. Okay, that's all done. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a piece of shrink wrap I have here and just go ahead and slide it over that end. And then you can take a heat gun, or in this case I have a lighter. I'm not going to just bust out my heat gun for doing this one little time. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink that on there nice and good. Okay, now we have the end. That's going to be from our antenna lead, and that's going to go to our EFLW end here. In-fed long wire. We're just missing a part. We got to connect it to the Slinky first. So for the Slinky, bear with me. I've only soldered a Slinky one time before, so let's hope this goes well. Okay, for the Slinky, I'm going to strip a lot more wire on this. I'm just going to go ahead and move my wire stripper length adjuster to the end. That should be good. I'm going to go ahead and tin the wire first. And then I'm going to tin this Slinky a little bit first. So you're going to have to get this thing kind of hot. Okay, before you solder your wire on, make sure that you have it orientated the way that the coil is going instead of facing the other way, or else your wire is going to have a big kink on it, right? And a lot of stress. You want to continue the same direction that the wire is twisted on here. So now that I've got them both tinned, let's go ahead and see if I can't get this soldered up. Okay, once you get it soldered, you got to hold it until it cools. Okay, now that we've got our wire attached, this is where the peanut butter jar is going to come in to play. So I recommend you get a Sharpie and you line this up on the top, and then you make one dot right where, if you could see, there's an end of this Slinky here where it ends. You're going to make one dot, line it up perfect right where it ends, and go ahead and make one dot. Oh. Okay, there's several other ways of doing this. You might not want to get your soldering iron tip dirty with some plastic. I'm going to go ahead and clean mine off after. I'm just going to melt a small hole, just big enough for that Slinky to slide through. Don't go too big. And if you wipe that plastic off of your soldering iron right away, it's usually not a problem. Okay, so now we have one hole. Now let's put our plastic back on the Slinky and then go right below that hole, all the way across, and put a hole below it. And then mark that with our Sharpie. We're going to do the same thing with the soldering iron. Just going to poke a quick little hole in it. And then I like to clean my soldering iron off right after. Make sure I don't have plastic on it. Okay, now that we have the two holes in there, through both sides of the ends of the plastic, across from each other, what we're going to want to do is leave this side with the lips up. We want the concave up. And then start from the bottom and start poking your Slinky through that first hole. Then you want to continue to slip it through and then pop through this second hole. Okay, now I'm through both holes. So what I like to do is bring it all the way through again, through that first hole one more time. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. If you're to make your holes a little bit bigger, you might be able to get this sit a little bit flatter, but that shouldn't be a problem. So now this is what's going to hold it to the top of your mast. But what you need to do is you need one more hole right in the center that's going to slip, your mast is going to slip through that. So I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball the center here, kind of make a mark. And then I'm going to grab my mast and have my mast handy so I make sure I don't make the hole too big. Okay, what my mast is a telescopic fishing pole for crappie. I'll put links below to everything I'm using here besides the homemade stuff, obviously. And then on the very top of it, I have some tape here so my wires and other things, Slinky, whatever, don't slide past this point, correct? So I'm going to need to melt a hole that's big enough for this plastic to slip down to here, but not past the tape. Okay, so I'm going to keep my mast handy so I can try it out here real quick. So I'm just going to dip a hole with my soldering iron once again right down the center of this plastic piece. Okay, while it's still hot, what I'm kind of doing is just taking the tip of my wire cutter and I'm honing out that hole while the plastic is still warm enough to move, and then making that hole a little bit nicer because the soldering iron might not quite do the trick. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and test this with my mast. Okay, my mast will fit in there, but it's not too big where it won't go over the tape. Congratulations, you just made a Slinky antenna. Very nice. Here's the top that everyone's been asking about. I'm sure this can be modified a little bit for your needs. If you wanted it to sit a little bit flatter, you could make those holes bigger or oblong. But this seems to work just fine for me because you want to try to keep the Slinky centered on your mast if you can, so it's not touching the sides of it if all possible. We got our lead, we checked our continuity. Once again, let's make sure our soldering iron is turned down and off. All right, check, we got the tip cleaned. All right, you're ready to take this out in the field. That will slip over my fishing pole. That's right, I'm gonna use a fishing pole. This is a 21-foot fishing pole, I believe. There's no eyelets, it's for crappie, and it's all telescopic. So this will slide over the tip of my fishing pole, and as you can see, I have a bunch of tape there, so it will stop and not slide any further down. I'm going to do this in a vertical configuration. There's a bunch of plans out there for different Slinky antennas. There's some dipole configurations, so I recommend you get out there and experiment and have some fun. So I am in a POTA park here in US 4391, I believe. I just checked the GPS. The elevation says I am at 7,980 feet here. So I am in the desert. Where am I going to tie my fishing pole off to? And I forgot my Titan straps to do it. So let's really hope this bungee cord will do it today. Yeah, that's how I'm rolling today. We have a Slinky, a bungee cord, and a fishing pole. So I did find this small piece of shrub over here, and I think it will be sufficient to tie off my fishing pole mast and my Slinky. So I'm going to set all that over there, and we'll talk a little bit more how I'm going to actually do this. So for the Slinky antenna, I'm using this 9-to-1, this LDG 9-to-1 onion, and you can see there's posts on one side and then your SO239 on the other side. Also, I did bring my chameleon coax, and then this has a choke inline on one end, so I can choke it. If you don't have a coax with a choke, I recommend doing your 9-to-1 and then do a 1-to-1 choke after that. So I'm also going to be using some counterpoise wires. I have some counterpoise wires already made up in here, and then I'm going to spread them out. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hook this Slinky to where it says EFLW for in-fed long wire. And then on the black post, I'm going to hook up my counterpoise wires. I'm going to go ahead and shoot this up the fishing pole, and we'll see if we can't get activated. The band conditions are definitely not on our side, but what better test for the Slinky antenna? So let's get to setting up. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the top section of my fishing pole, maybe the two top. That way it's not stuck in here and I don't have to pull it out once this is mounted. I do not prefer bungee straps for doing this, but I forgot my other straps. So this is what I have today. So let's make it work. Okay, let me show you my Slinky up a little bit closer. I forgot to show you the other end. So on the bottom of the Slinky, I soldered 2 of the rings together, and then I have a lead wire coming off with this Spade connector, and that's going to go ahead and connect to my 9-to-1. And then there is that plastic top you see that spreads over 2 of the wires evenly, and then the holes in the middle. So this is going to slide over my mast. All right, now that I've got my mast all attached, I'm going to go ahead and slide my Slinky over with the wire on the bottom. That's going to connect to my 9-to-1. And then I'm going to slip that hole over the top of my tripod here. I'm going to go ahead and hook this lead wire up to where it says in-fed long wire, EFLW, on my 9-to-1 here. Okay, so I've slid my Slinky over the top. I have that plastic contraption I made for the top going over my mast. And then I pin down the 9-to-1, so that way when I raise the mast, the Slinky won't pull everything up. So I'm gonna go ahead and start raising the mast, or the fishing pole mast. And then each section I raise, I wanna give it a twist too to make sure it has a good friction lock, because it is going to be under spring tension now trying to collapse this mast with the Slinky. So I want to make sure everything's good and tight. Okay, it is very windy out here right now. I've got it all the way up. I might even want to drop it some more. I did this before. I believe I used a 17-foot mast though. This one might be a little long. I don't know if you can see behind me, I got the Jeep Club that's out here driving around in the Jeeps, and these guys have been driving by me, giving me the craziest looks out here with my fishing pole and Slinky. Little do they know what I'm up to. All right, now that I gave the Jeep Club a good laugh, we've got the Slinky antenna up in the air. All I need to do is add some counterpoise wires. I'm actually just using some counterpoise wires that were already pre-made up for my ATOS 25. So I'm not going to be using a whole bunch of counterpoise. These are cut for different bands. So I'm going to go ahead and toss these out and hook them up to the black side of the 9-to-1. I'm going to go ahead and take my coax, and then I'm going to put my choke side to my 9-to-1, run the other side to my Xiegu G90 and see if we can't get activated with 20 watts and a Slinky, so stand by. Okay, I have my antenna analyzer. Let's see if we can't read this out in the field and see how this thing looks before we start getting activated. And to show you guys, it is indeed hooked up to the coax that is running to the Slinky antenna. So 20 meters, not looking so great. I did a sweep and yeah, nothing under 3 there. So 20 meters currently not looking so great. 17 meters, 2.5. It's looking better on 17 meters, at least at 18.1. 15 meters. All right, things are starting to happen here. I saw a 1.5 there for a second. Now we're up to 1.7. I think it depends where the wind is blowing. Oh, yeah, back down to 1.5. 12 meters. All right, we're at 1.9. It's jumping around. There, it went to 2.8 to 1.9. All right, so 12 meters is doable. 11 meters. All right, 1.73. So this would apparently make an okay CB antenna. 10 meters. Ah, see, I had it earlier at like 1.35. 6 meters, not looking. Oh, you could, yeah, you could pull it off. 2.45. 160, no go. 80 meters. Wow, surprisingly, I'm getting 2.4 at 80 meters with 56 ohms. Interesting. 40 meters, 2.2 at 26 ohms. That's at 7.1. 30 meters, 2.8 at 32 ohms. All right, so it's looking okay on some bands. Let's give it a shot. CQ, Parks on the air. Whiskey 6 India, Whiskey November, calling CQ, Parks on the air.
Charlie, Alpha Lima 7, Kilo Charlie in Alaska, over.
Alpha Lima 7, Kilo Charlie. Mike, good to hear you. I got you 5.8 on the Slinky. I am talking to you on a Slinky. I have up a fishing pole in a vertical configuration.
Yeah, okay. That's kind of what I figured you were doing with it. Yeah, I've thought about doing that myself, but haven't actually followed through quite yet.
Very good. We got Alaska.
5 and 3, 53 Alaska.
All right. Very good. Activated with the Slinky antenna for the 3rd time. I cannot lie to you. The wind is just ripping through us. Ricky and I are very cold. We got our 10 contacts. We're gonna get out of here. The bands aren't that great, but we did it. We got activated on the Slinky antenna. Very good. I'm gonna get this stuff packed up and head down the hill. Thanks for watching, and I'm hoping that maybe if you get bored someday, you can make a Slinky antenna and go activate and have some fun with it too. 7-3, and we hope to catch you on the next one.